talk about Daksh and then a bit about how the partnership came about, and then Nomesh can also pitch in on why this partnership is so exciting for all of us. So thank you so much, Rajneesh ji, and thank you APAC News Network for having Nomesh and me here in this talk. Daksh is a non-profit based out of Bangalore. We're doing work in the area of judicial reforms since 2015. Daksh has been around since 2008 doing work on political accountability. Since 2015, judicial reforms has been our focus. We've pioneered the use of data um, on understanding the judicial processes, on understanding the judicial functioning. Um, on understanding how the judiciary works on a day-to-day basis. Everybody knows about 3 crore cases, 4 crore cases pending, but what does it mean on a day-to-day basis? What does it mean on a case-to-case basis? What does it mean to a citizen? What does it mean to a judge? Right? So we've converted that 3 crore number into the lived experience of litigants, lawyers, and the judges. That's what Daksh has done over the last 5-6 years. We've written some path-breaking, we've done some path-breaking surveys of litigants nationally. We've done some path-breaking research with the High Court of Delhi, for example, the only such pilot project to have been done in the country. Um, so that's what Daksh is about, looking at improving the functioning of the judiciary to serve the needs of the citizens. The shift that has happened over the last 2-3 years in the mindset of Daksh is that the judicial reform cannot be seen to be on a standalone basis. It has to be seen to be part of an ecosystem, the justice ecosystem, right? You have the police, you have the prosecutors, you have forensic labs, you have investigation arms, you have government lawyers. So so you have to approach the judicial reforms as a justice ecosystem shift, and reform is possibly too big a word when you look at it as an ecosystem. um, and that is why we started engaging with Nomesh at IIT Delhi. Nomesh has already done work using judicial data. In fact, that was one of the first times that Daksh and Nomesh interacted while he was presenting his research work to a close group of people. And we quickly realized that there were so many common areas of interest, so many synergies, that really we should be taking this up one notch, many notches higher, by trying to see how we can put together our competencies together. We have complementary strengths. We have deep knowledge of the justice system, judicial processes, judicial data. Nomesh brings with him this approaches of operations research, etc., which I'm sure he will go into. So we saw immediately how there is a need for some organization like Daksh, which is interested and invested in changing the way they function, agencies function, and using the expertise that somebody like Nomesh and others at IIT Delhi bring to the table. So it was a very natural expansion of interest to set up this Daksh Center of Excellence for Law and Technology at IIT Delhi, which is the pioneering center doing interdisciplinary work on the justice system. So that is how we have been thinking about this so far, and I'll leave this, Nomesh, for you to add to this.
Right. So thanks, Surya, and thanks, Rajneesh, for having us over and this conversation. Uh, so, for us, so Dutch Society, Surya talked about how we came in touch with each other during that meeting. And of course, I had been doing some work as a part of some interdisciplinary research, which connects to what you were talking about. I will talk about that. For us at IIT, Daksh brings in what we call a center of excellence. So the full name of the center of excellence is the Daksh Center of Excellence for Law and Technology. So the idea is to work at the intersection of law and technology at IIT Delhi and create this group which engages in such kind of work. Now, because Daksh is supporting us, I mean, this has the name Daksh affiliated to it, but it's essentially, as far as we are concerned at IIT Delhi, it's a center of excellence, just like the other 18 centers of excellence that we have right now at IIT Delhi. The charter of I mean, Surya talked about beautifully as only he can, the charter of Daksh itself, Daksh society itself. But that is Daksh society. The Daksh Center of Excellence at IIT Delhi, to our mind and as per our understanding and the memorandum of understanding that we've signed, has broadly three things. These are three things that most research and educational institutions should be doing. One is doing research, second, what we call translation, and the third is bringing stakeholders together. That's what academic institutions are supposed to do. And that's what the Dutch Center of Excellence aspires to do at the intersection of law and technology. So, research would mean doing fundamental knowledge building, do analysis that informs how law and justice system can improve. Translation would mean actually building solutions that can be piloted and implemented within institutions, within the judiciary, if they want, within the government, within other stakeholders in the society, and actually not just remain restricted to publications and to documents, but actually come up with a solution that translates the ideas to impact on the ground, and hence translation. And then, of course, as only educational institutions can, serve as a sort of platform where various stakeholders can come together and converse about their challenges, share their ideas and experiences. And these stakeholders could include people from the from the society, citizens. It will definitely include the judiciary and the government. It will include practitioners such as lawyers and so on and so forth. In terms of the existing scheme at IIT, so since its inception, if you look at the vision and mission of IIT, it has always had this streak of wanting to contribute to nation building and to society, right? But over the last 2 decades, I would say there has been a more and more of an explicit effort to do that through research and development. And now, recently, when IIT Delhi was given this Institute of Eminence tag, the recognition by the government of India, we actually in IIT Delhi in our Vision 2030, we have put societal engagement and working for the society as a core pillar of our activities. So, as a result, what you will see is a convergence of the various activities that we've been doing for quite some time into definitive structures. So, for example, IIT Delhi today, as on today, has 19 centers of excellence, which are all about interdisciplinary research. So, Daksh Center of Excellence is the first one of its kind, not just IIT Delhi, of course, all over the country at the intersection of law and technology. But then there are other centers of excellence, for example, working on clean air, which needs, again, knowledge from various disciplines. There is a center of excellence that works with DRDO, right, developing advanced systems for them, on smart textiles, right? So, which again needs diverse knowledge, interdisciplinary areas. On top of that, what IIT Delhi has also done in a very conscious way over the past 5 to 10 years is design what are called interdisciplinary research programs. So, in fact, it was one such faculty interdisciplinary research program within IIT Delhi that got me into this entire area. And the idea was beautiful. They said, so faculty from different departments, of course, doing their own disciplinary research, they engage. But, we are announcing this sort of contest, of projects only for people who can work on interdisciplinary idea. So I got together with a colleague of mine from the CS and some other departments, and we did a project at the intersection of law and tech. That was my introduction to this entire area. This is about 5 years back, and that's how we met Surya, and that's how everything worked out. But then what IIT Delhi realized is, why remain restricted to interdisciplinary research within departments at IIT Delhi? Why not take it beyond IIT? So, for example, then IIT went ahead and started finalizing MOUs with various institutions so far in Delhi, but we don't mind going outside of Delhi as well, of course. So, for example, we've had one such program. It's called Multi-Institution Faculty Interdisciplinary Research Project. We call it MFIRP. That is between IIT and AIMS, right? So, very natural combination of technology and medicine. There was one on IIT and Ayurveda. And similarly, there have been other institutions. And recently, I think as a result, probably of Daksh and other efforts that NLU Delhi made, the National Law University Delhi, we have now about to sign an MOU and now announced a program where faculty from IIT Delhi and the NLU Delhi will work together on problems at the intersection of the law and justice system as well as technology. So you see that there is already a clear push and convergence of all these ideas to do interdisciplinary work. And I think Daksh beautifully fits in. And the aspiration that we have is, at least in the area of law and technology, we become the catalyst for taking this interdisciplinary education forward.
Since we are talking of convergence of law and technology, and we talked about data, that's critical. And I believe since there is again disparate amount and disparate nature of data coming, analysis of data, the analytics part is very critical. So how is that being done? One. And the second is you mentioned, Surya, also you mentioned earlier about that ultimately judiciary is about all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. So that would involve legal side, the prosecution side, the police, and now each of these stakeholders in the ecosystem, there's new and new technologies involved. So now ultimately for the whole judiciary to function properly, technologies in each amongst each of these stakeholders have to synchronize and work smoothly together. How do you ensure that? So one is the analytics part, and second is this technology amongst the police force, the prosecution, the investigation, forensics you mentioned, then the legal side. So how is the synchronization being done?
So let me take the analytics part first, Rajneesh. So, I think it's amazing actually that we are generally a data-starved country, right, in various ways and in various disciplines. But interestingly, law is one sector where, because of the e-courts mission project, data to a good amount is actually available for public consumption. You can just go online and find out about case summaries of all kinds of courts in India. District courts, high courts, all of that is available. Of course, there is a lot that remains to be done in terms of structuring the data properly and putting out more data, I guess, for specific research purposes. And that's what we want to reach out to judiciary for. And we have actually done that. Hopefully, some of that will happen for better data analytics to happen. But the idea is to use this data that is available in public domain, as well as collect other data, and then there is a whole variety of things that are possible with this data actually. And I'll just take two or three examples to just share what all is possible. For example, the data that is already available, it can give us a fairly good idea of how are various district courts or high courts performing. What are the kind of areas in which one high court might be performing better than the other, and therefore they can learn from each other, right? Is are there can be some insights that can be drawn on what are the common challenges using this data set, so that they can work together on a common strategy, and so on and so forth. So the first part is just using that data and do some statistical analysis to just figure out insights on how things can improve better, how they can be ranked, how indices can be developed, etc., etc. And this is one thing that we've done. The other thing that we are right now doing at the center is working on case flow management for the high courts, right? So how does a case cycle through its entire life cycle in the courts? From the day somebody goes to the court to the time it's filed to the time the entire case is disposed. So how does it happen? What are the bottlenecks there? What kind of interventions can improve this process, both in terms of delays as well as the quality of justice itself? So that is ongoing right now, and the kind of data that we get will actually help developing through what we call simulation models and through some data analytics. It will help us in identifying such things. Another project that is going on is on check bouncing cases, right? So I mean, check bounce is a huge area. Surya can probably put more emphasis on that. And we are right now analyzing all the data that's available around check bouncing to figure out what are better ways to handle this menace that we have. And it seems like it can be done, right? I mean, but we will see what the data tells us. One more project that we might award has not yet started, relates to citizens. So how can technology and analytics help citizens in navigating the law and justice system? So if they have a problem, what sort of cases can they file? If they file a case, how long is it going to take? What could be possible outcomes? So tools from various data analytics domains can be used to identify. So you can see this, the existing data plus data that we can procure from elsewhere can help the citizens in navigating the law and justice system. It can help the judiciary in improving their performance. It can help relevant sectoral stakeholders in identifying what the issues are, as well as it can help the other stakeholders in just figuring out what to do to improve the system. So I think all of these things are possible. Some of those are being done, and we look forward to it.
Let me just quickly answer your question on Rajneesh on the technology side of it. We have a fantastic opportunity right now on integrating, if I may use that word, although technologists will frown on it, the information flows. across the justice ecosystem. And the draft vision document that the Supreme Court has put out, the subcommittee of experts of which Daksh was a part of, Daksh's co-founder Harish was a part of, and Daksh assisted along with other organizations in putting together this vision for what technology for the judiciary should look like going forward, is a departure from what has been imagined in the past. So now we are imagining this to be a enabler of information flows across the ecosystem, enabler of building solutions by stakeholders as they fit to use the data of the judiciary. So a platform approach is what I'm told it is. So uh, the way I think we should look at this is, it's an information ecosystem, right? You have you have facts of the case, you have laws, you have legal arguments, you have evidences, right? There are precedences, and the judge is really I mean, is actually just processing all of this information and giving a decision. So how can we enable these information flows while being mindful of privacy, information security, national security? All of these are going to be the exciting things ahead of us. The stage is set now to think of building solutions and building the digital infrastructure that is required to enable the building of solutions as stakeholders see fit. That is why this is such an exciting point of time.
I have one point here. What you exactly mentioned, I feel there is a certain gray area here. The digital infrastructure part is fine, no argument. But what you said about the precedents, say typically how the judgment is done is ultimately it's based on interpretation of the judge on basis of precedences and earlier evidences and everything together. Now, when you are sort of, if I may use the word, automating the process, the workflow, so is there a possibility that that interpretation may get somehow compromised, if I may say? One is that possibility, and second, if we see in for many cases, when the case is being heard, that there is this question of outside influence should not come. Whereas in when we are talking about an information workflow, then there is quite a possibility of more and more information might coming in. So again, there is a possibility of compromise happening. So how do you sort of manage these two instances?
So this is we are now going into the territory of automating justice functions, which need not be the logical next step of building technology or the information systems. Whether to automate or not is not a default. It can be a very conscious decision on what to automate, what not to automate, whether it should be automated at all. So all this information ecosystem does not have to mean automation. Why that is important is because of the risks that you highlighted. Um, so Daksh has already put, we are going to shortly release some papers on this aspect of how algorithms should be used in the justice system, and we strongly believe that we are not yet at a stage where algorithms can be trusted for purposes as important to human life as justice. um, Therefore we always view this as enabling human decision. All the information points will be used by a human agent. That is to be the purpose of the justice technology that we are talking about. There is no suggestion of automation in our mind at this stage. On the question of outside influence, it's an easier answer because outside influence um, is what comes on record. So when you build a workflow for information processing, it's really, workflow is possibly not the right answer, right term to use, but then when you're enabling information processing, only what information is placed on record legally according to legal processes will be processed by these by the aid of technology. So when you talk of outside technology, you're talking of extrajudicial, extra legal influences which technology cannot solve. It can only minimize. Those are political economy questions that require a larger discussion, I feel.
No, and let me,
Um,
if I may come in here, Rajneesh, let's
yeah.
just add to what Surya said. I think let's be very clear. Nobody is saying that human beings can be replaced. I mean, I would go a step further than Surya and say not just now. I think even perpetually and eventually, I don't think
Completely
human
agree.
beings can be replaced. Definitely not so in the judicial function.
Correct.
So the entire talk is about identifying what are things that the judiciary, or in fact any other domain, even the government, for example, does in a strictly rules-based way, right? So to then code it all up using technology to do it more efficiently. If they are doing some searching, for example, how can they search more efficiently instead of going over reams of data which could be on paper? How to find the most relevant information? That is where technology can be used. If cases are flowing already through a rules-based system, then how can that those rules be automated? Only those rules, right? And how can those rules be changed, giving input so that things can be a little better? These are places where technology and data analytics can possibly come in now and forever. I mean, I think this entire thing about being, taking over the judicial function and announcing decisions, I don't think it can be done now, and I don't think it can be done forever.
Even when the information workflow is coming, this will also require some sort of tweaking in our legal system. Some of the prosecution laws, because something might not be immediately legally valid in a court of law. So, how those things are being adjusted. And two, this rules based thing, I believe, so are there plans? See, why the judiciary or the courts in India are lagging behind? Because there are so many cases, and many of them are just petty cases or routine cases which can be sorted out. So, can rules based form be used to sort of clear this huge backlog, and which are really some petty complaints, or maybe even frivolous in some extent, or small complaints, but which are just clogging the courts. So, is there a possibility of these rules based system ultimately helping in clearing some of these backlogs?
So let me take the second question first, and maybe Surya can take the first question. Right? I think, see, the rules-based system, not just in terms of taking over the judicial function, there are other things also where rules are required in the entire judicial process, not just the decision making, right? And that is where I think we can definitely use rules to improve the system, right? For example, how should things move? What kind of scheduling of cases should be done? How should cases flow through the entire system? So there are things that can be done to make the system better. Even in terms of pendency, the way you described, I think there can be ways, if there are particularly petty cases where one can use some rules, identify rules that judiciary already has, and use the data that it has, apply the rules on the data, and then come up with cases which might help. But the key point that I'm saying is, even before that, there are things to be done, which through using methods from, for example, operations research, from data analytics, right, from machine learning, which can improve the system. Even when we go to the point of using rules to make decisions itself, I am personally at least not saying, and nobody in IIT or Daksh is saying, that even when rules can determine the outcomes of cases, they should be announced as it is. What we are saying is, let us use all of that information and put everything, including the decision, in front of a judge, so that they can then take a call on it and do more research if they want, or just use it as it is. I think that would be the approach to take it forward.
Yeah, I think Nomesh has answered the. So the rule base actually answers your previous question on outside influence by ensuring that the processes and the steps stick to what is in the black letter of the law, you're actually reducing scope for influence. So uh, I I think we are we are at a good place there. On the backlog rules based, uh, so there are possibilities to innovate using the methods that Nomesh described to identify, for example, similar cases or identify petty cases, like how you mentioned. So there are possibilities of using the techniques and attacking them using innovative methods. So possibly the word rules based is not relevant for that particular scenario, but I take your point. Yes.
One, in terms of for a center of excellence to go beyond that and real life synchronization, you gave a couple of examples working with the National Law University, but in terms of specifically with the courts, what are the plans in terms of real life judiciary working with it? And beyond that, also for this Daksh Center of Excellence, what is the roadmap ahead? How are you looking at for the maybe the next few months? How are things going to go ahead?
Sure. You want to go ahead, Nomesh, and then I'll possibly do
Yeah,
closing.
sure. Right. So, I think at least at a COE, where the idea is not just to do research that gets buried in some documents, the idea is to engage very actively with all stakeholders. Now, to what extent and intensity that happens depends on the other side as well, right? So, if it comes to the government, on the government; if it comes to the judiciary, on the judiciary; if it comes to the practitioners, on the practitioners. But what we can assure is we will not be left wanting to do this outreach. So we want to engage with them in one, identifying what the problems are so that we don't work in problems in our ivory towers. We want to work with them in carrying the solution forward. So telling us about whether a particular approach that we have thought of, does it make sense? The final solution, does it make sense? If not, we iterate with them and then come up with a solution that makes more sense. So in every possible way, we will never be wanting. We actually want to do a very active outreach. That's the whole purpose of setting up a COE. What we are doing right now is, yes, we're actually reaching out, and in fact through some let me say informal discussions, we actually did identify one or two problems that we're talking about. The check bounce case is one example. We have run one project already on analyzing the websites of high courts, for instance, that directly came from somebody within the institutions where they talked about a specific problem. So the idea is to keep on reaching out, sending out messages to them. As in academic institutions, we are privileged to also be able to convene various stakeholders, for example, do seminars, invite them for meetings, go and meet them, and so on and so forth. So the idea is to keep doing that. And that is how remain relevant, work on problems that matter, and develop solutions that can actually be implemented. Right? That is the core idea. And I think, I would say it is not just a side activity. I think it's a core part of the Center of Excellence to do this active engagement with all the stakeholders that matter. Uh, and that is a key way to scale up as well, because you talked about scaling up. The idea would be to actually identify some core burning problems in the relevant institutions, and then attempt to solve them. On the other hand, trying to develop more and more partnerships with other kind of people. So there is an active conversation, dialogue, engagement with faculty within IIT Delhi, of course, faculty and students within IIT Delhi. We have taken the next step, and we are actively involved in the process with NLU Delhi as well. And then there are other sort of institutions that we've reached out to. We are talking to them. We're talking to Triple IT, for example, Indian Institute of Information Technology, and so on and so forth, all over the country. So the idea is to develop all these partnerships going forward, and that is the way, I think, a key way in which we want to scale up. Of course, while doing that, we also want to highlight that we will not become a solution development machine or a vendor for any sort of institution. The idea is to conduct some fundamental research as well, and tell all these institutions, so they come to us with problems, we solve them. That's one way. The other way to also scale up is to say, well, we have identified these issues, we have conducted some analysis, and this is what you should be doing to take things forward. So both of these processes are going on through, doing events, like I said, through awarding projects, through active engagement and outreach.
I think, Nomesh, I think you've encapsulated everything very well. That the rigor of tackling on a tough problem through research, presenting it as a solution, while closely working with stakeholders, is going to be the cornerstone of this COE. So I would keenly watch out for more of our work in that area. uh, I don't have anything more to add on that.
Okay, great. Thanks.